What is a woman? The question that tells the story. This week, Judge Ketanji Brown Jackson is before the Senate Judiciary Committee being cross-examined by various senators on her qualifications, her thoughts, her judicial philosophy in setting her up for her appointment to the Supreme Court of the United States of America. And one flashpoint in the cross-examinations has been over her sentencing as a judge when it came to child pornography cases. Several Republican senators have asked her why does she have a track record of sentencing child pornographers to less than the requested sentence from the probation office and the prosecutor. If the prosecutor said that a defendant should be sentenced to 5 years, why is it that Ketanji Brown Jackson's ultimate sentencing always came in at 2.5? I use those figures arbitrarily, but the statistics show she always came in less than the recommended sentencing. And people asked, why? Is she soft on child porn? But that's not the why I'm interested in. The why I'm interested in is why or what she may believe or think about the United States Constitution. Let me explain. So this question about child pornography is one of discretion. What does a judge do? What does Judge Jackson do when given discretion? When given discretion, why does she choose the lesser of the punishments when it comes to child pornography? And here's why discretion is so important. First of all, from a human perspective, everything is about judgment. I'm never going to forget this. You know, one time when I was working at ESPN was going through this moment where they were having trouble with so much of their talent tweeting about politics, Donald Trump, this and that. And the question is that your Twitter feed and is that your feed or does that reflect on the company? And you can obviously look back at the high profile examples of people that tweeted and brought ESPN into the crosshairs of major news cycles. And there was this huge meeting, a bunch of talent around the table. And it's like, where's the line? What can you tweet about? What's the line between politics and culture? And I remember sitting there, and I will say, I only spoke once in this meeting, and it was with all the high-profile executives, and basically every talent you can imagine. They were all there. I don't mind saying that. I mean, it was Stephen A. Smith, Scott Van Pelt, Mike Greenberg. I mean, pretty much you can imagine the talent they were at this meeting. And people were banding about, different things about, honestly, like what it means to be black or what it means to be brown or what it means to be a woman. More on that in a moment. And I just said one thing in the meeting. I said, you're not going to be able to set a standard. There's no protocol or no procedure that's going to tell people what they can or cannot tweet. The truth is, this is about judgment. And there was one other talent, very high profile. I'd say one of the 3 highest profile talents at ESPN, who echoed my sentiment and said, yes, that's what this is about. It's about judgment. You have to hire and then empower people with good judgment. And my judgment is that they largely failed at finding people with good judgment. But judgment is what you do when given discretion. Now, why is it so important what Ketanji Brown Jackson's judgment, her discretion is? Not just because she's a justice, because obviously you want a judge and a justice on the Supreme Court that has good judgment, but there are things that hem that in, that create a box of constraint. And the, for lack of a better word, conservative view of that is that you are highly constrained by the Constitution of the United States of America. It lays out what can and cannot be done by legislatures, by statute, or by the judiciary. Beyond the United States Constitution, you're hemmed in by statutory law, what is passed by Congress. Beyond that, you are hemmed in by common law, what has been said and ruled before you in the courts, precedent. And these constraints limit your discretion, limit your judgment. But there is, in the progressive belief of legal theory, way more elbow room, way fewer restraints. There's a belief that the law evolves. There was a time when we talked about the living Constitution. What does that mean? It means nothing. It just means whatever the judge thinks. And the judge rides along. Often these judges, these progressive, these liberal judges, they ride along the wave of what is trendy on the left in the moment. And therefore, your discretion is at the mercy of progressive trends. And that leads us to this question. What is a woman? Judge Ketanji Jackson Brown was asked that question by Senator Marsha Blackburn. Here's how it went. Listen. Now you can hear she cannot answer that question. She will not answer that question. Why? It's a very simple question. It's one that has been pushed to the front of the cultural zeitgeist by the Daily Wire's Matt Walsh. He has a new special coming out where he goes across the world, by the way, talking to tribes in Africa and people across the world and asking that simple question, what is a woman? And no matter how simple your culture, no matter what part of the world you come from, everyone seems to have a fairly easy time answering what is a woman. XY chromosome, ovaries, eggs, the ability to reproduce. Something along those lines, on the average. Not every woman, but on the average, inhabits those characteristics. In fact, it's such a simple question that most people laugh at the question, what is a woman? But not Judge Ketanji Brown's action, because she understands the trend of the moment in progressive politics. And what does she say? I can't say. I'm not a biologist. Now, that's pretty fascinating, as though only biologists can say what is a woman. By the way, I love that admission. Thank you, Judge Jackson, for the admission that it is a question of biology and not a social construct. That what is a woman is not one to be decided by the progressive moment, but rather it is one to be decided by actual science. The problem is we've perverted science. In a viral video that went around this week, there's these two people sitting in the stands of Leah Thomas just whipping the ass of ladies in the pool. And it's this dude, of course, wearing a mask, arguing with this English woman. And she's saying, this is not right. It's not right. Look at his body compared to her. You think this is right? And he's like, well, who am I to say? I mean, who are you to say? And he accuses her of playing word games, which is freaking fascinating because once again, here we are, the power of projection, accusing her of doing exactly what he is doing. But he then ultimately says this to her. He says, are you a biologist? It's almost as though Judge Jackson is getting her talking points from the stands of Leah Thomas's swim meets, of the masked man, asking, are you a biologist? The guy, by the way, the guy wasn't the masked man, of course, like the Lone Ranger covering his eyes. He was the masked man, like the progressive of 2020 and 2021, covering his mouth. And this English woman had the perfect response. After just a beat, she said, well, I'm not a veterinarian either, but I know bloody well what a dog is. Yeah, you don't have to be a vet to point out what a dog is. You also don't have to be a vet to point out what a male dog is. See the dong on the male dog. You don't have to be a meteorologist to point out it's a cloudy day. And you don't have to be a biologist to know what a woman is. But here's the thing. A lot of people want to blow this off. What is a woman? As though it's this superficial culture war in America. There's bigger issues at hand. No, there's not. No, there's not. Not if a society is to be founded upon sanity, on reality, and on an objective understanding of the world around you. Because upon those rocks, we build justice. We build law. Now I want you to hear this conversation forwarded by Senator Ted Cruz and Judge Jackson on what is a woman. Listen. Now this is why it's not simply a shallow issue in the culture war. The United States of America, through statutory law, has an entire system built upon the idea of protected classes. Obviously, you know, on racial issues, the Constitution, or better yet, the U.S. Supreme Court, has built up a standard of scrutiny on laws. You know, you shall not discriminate. Equal protection under the law. But if we do have laws that discriminate, we have to look and see, is it justified? Is the discrimination justified? Again, I know we have to advance beyond our kindergarten or 8th grade level of understanding, but discrimination is part of judgment. Discrimination is not inherently bad. Discrimination, as analyzed against its cost and benefits, is the standard. It's quite literally the standard in the United States. So we know that laws discriminate. If they discriminate and they have a racial impact, so it's clear either de facto, meaning on its face, or rather de jure on its face, or de facto in its application has a racial impact, we say, well, what is the merits of the law then? That's how it's done. And how do you do that? Because race isn't the only class. Gender is part of those classes as well. If you have a gender-based law, gender discrimination law, how do you do that? If anyone can be a woman. If Ted Cruz can say he's a woman, how do you have any gender-based laws? If he can say he's an Asian man, how do you have any protected racial classes? You can't. It blows the entire thing up. I mean, it blows up the entire constitutional system. It blows up the entire legal system. It blows up the entire thing because it blows up reality, sanity. Look, man, this is something you intuitively know. You don't need me to explain it because, again, like Matt Walsh walking the earth and talking to tribes across the world, everyone knows. If you can't tell me what a woman is, we're not living in reality.
Hey, Sean Hannity here. Hey, click here to subscribe to Fox News YouTube page and catch our hottest interviews and most compelling analysis. You will not get it anywhere else.